Hi, I'm Mike Korenko, the CEO of Advanced Medical Isotope Corporation, and today I'm going to give you an overview of our company and the plans going forward. I'm going to do this in a very candid, honest way, so I've been advised that everybody should read the safe harbor statement that is shown on this slide. That is going to give us some kind of protection, but I don't really believe we need it. As an overview, on slide 3, about 3 years ago, Advanced Medical Isotope Corporation decided to focus on the application of isotopes, and they selected a RadioGel as a brachytherapy device for medical and veterinarian cancer treatments. Now, brachytherapy is just a fancy word of a treatment of tumor by the direct injection into a tumor. Now, our team is small, but it's very competent and it has impressive credentials. And we believe, and we operate with a sense of urgency. We work in 7 days a week, and we believe in strategic partnerships. We work with the best national labs, the university veterinarian centers, and the private corporations. Our mission, shown on slide 4, is to provide a new potent brachytherapy tool for the treatment of cancers in humans and animals that's going to be very effective in improving the lives of patients. And our strategy is to generate near-term revenue from the veterinarian clinics and international licensing while pursuing the FDA approach for approval for multiple cancer indications. I think before we go any further, I think it's important you understand our product. It's classified as a device. It's called RadioGel. And the best way to think about it is when you make Jell-O, you put it in the refrigerator, it cools and it gels. Hydrogel is just the opposite. When it warms up, it gels. So what we do is we directly inject liquid into the tumor, and as it arises aside to body temperature, it locks in these little teeny particles. And the particles are yttrium-90 phosphate. They're very small insoluble particles. They're very small so they can perfuse into the tumor. The yttrium-90 is the highest energy beta emitter. A beta is nothing more than electricity, but it's very fast electrons and very high energy, so we can kill tumors. We can easily deliver 5 times the dose that you can get from any external beam therapy. But yttrium-90 has 2 other features that are important. First, it travels only a short distance, maybe a quarter inch, so there's minimal damage to the surrounding healthy tissue. And if you have a larger tissue, you just put more injections. And what that short distance does is it also protects the practitioners, the doctors and veterinarians. They don't get any shine. They don't get any harm from putting the product. And it's designed the same day treatment. So the patient gets a treatment, even if it's right underneath the skin, they go home the same day, no harm to their, or a danger to their immediate family and friends. Another important feature of yttrium-90 is it has a 3-day half-life. So every 3 days, half of it decays away. So after 10 days, it's only have 5% left. So it does its job and then it leaves town. So it's a very exciting product. The schematic on the upper right-hand corner is showing what I was talking about. You just inject it into the tumor, perfuses and gels, and then it kills the tumor. The lower right-hand corner is the development we're just working on. In fact, this week we're actually injecting our first rats. We are wondering if you can inject directly into the feeder arteries of tumors and have it go into the tumor that way, which would be important for liver and prostate cancers. So we don't know the results of that yet, but I just want to let you know about that development that's in progress. The highlights that have occurred, at least I want to flag out, we do expect revenue from the IsoPet, the veterinarian side, by January and now I think earlier. We are going to focusing on getting international licensing revenue maybe about March of next year. We have a world-class medical advisory board, and I'll say more about that. And we plan to uplist to a senior exchange. We're not sure if it's NASDAQ or New York yet, but we'll do that in the next couple months. We're partnering with leading national labs, universities, private corporations. We have just really improved our production process, and I'll have more to say about that. The FDA ruled that our product's a device. That makes it, gives us the best of both worlds. We can get drug-type benefits on our revenues and a lower cost, faster approval change for the device. We have exclusive license with Battelle for this and extensive intellectual property protection. Slide 7 kind of shows you the steps for the veterinarian side of the world. First is to obtain approval for test. In a typical university, this takes 2 to 4 months. And we are in the middle of that process right now. We have approval at one university, and we have, I'll say more about that in a minute. After you get the approval, then you do the testing on the animals, and then after that demonstration, then you go into the private clinics based on the confidence they've achieved from those testing. And the next slide gives you more details. The fact that FDA ruled RadioGel as a device for humans should, by congressional status, means that it's a device for pets and that you do not need any pre-market approval just to start commercializing a pet. But we're being conservative and cautious. So we're checking with that, double checking with that side of the FDA because you never know, but that's ongoing right now. We're testing at 4 different nationally recognized veterinarian universities. We started already at Washington State. We've treated 2 cats for feline sarcoma. Dr. Janine Fidel, he just completed the pathology, said, I didn't write the report yet, but I want you to tell the FDA that the product works. So we are pretty happy about that. The University of Missouri will be working on canine sarcoma, and also horses have a real problem with sarcoma in their case. UC Davis, we think, which case was this one, is development between prostate and liver. And finally, Colorado State, which is the #1 nationally recognized radiation treatment center for vets. We'll be doing feline oral cancer and mast cell skin cancer. Now, feline, I should say, is really important. They're excited about trying it because their cats have no option. They die a horrible death. And so Dr. Susan LaRue is very anxious to try RadioGel to see if we can save those animals. We're going to do our preclinical study for the Food and Drug Administration on mess at Colorado State also. The program is guided by Dr. Alice Villanovas. She's the chair of the Veterinarian Medical Advisory Board. She's from Los Angeles, and she is just probably one of the most respected veterinarians in the United States. She's currently writing a book, which is just about to come out, and we are featured in 3 different places in that book. The veterinary market segment is not to be sneezed at. It's not as big as the humans, but it's a significant opportunity for us. There are 78 million dogs and 86 million cats in the United States. And after they get to over the age of 10, then 32% of the cats and 50% of the dogs get cancer. Now, RadioGel can't treat all these cancers. We treat 6 or 8 of them. But if we are able to treat 10% of the cancers and with a nominal fee, then that alone is about 40 million annual revenues, which is nothing to be sneezed at. And we believe this can start in January of 2018. In fact, we're hoping it's sooner this month. I'll be traveling, talk to some private clinics and see if we can start this much earlier than January. The human side is a very exciting story. In January, I reconstituted the Medical Advisory Board and increased in membership, changed it, and the new members have more than 125 years of combined experience. When I was talking about RadioGel in one of the recent conferences, it generated quite a buzz, and 2 doctors from the Mayo Clinic said they want to help, and so they are actually advising the Medical Advisory Board. We test, hey, take a blank sheet of paper, tell us what cancers do you think RadioGel would be good for? And no holds barred, but do it like an engineer. We gave them criteria. Number 1, these are just a summary of the criteria, but they're effective in killing cancer. Number 2, it had to be the best mousetrap. It has to be a notable advantage over existing therapies. Number 3 is can be profitably embraced by the medical community. That one sounds kind of strange, but if the medical community cannot figure out how to make profit every step, it will die. We have cases of that. So they went and we had many, many calls, and they concluded that these are the 18 areas where RadioGel would be really a good product. And it's actually bigger than that list because we left a lot of the children cancers are another list. But in a sense, this made us feel pretty good. This is really going to be a dynamite product. But nobody in the right mind could think that you can get 18 cancers through the FDA all at once. So we sent them back to the drawing board and said, hey, pick the one that you think would be the easiest for the first indication for use. And they selected skin cancer. And the next slide, on slide 11, specifically basal and squamous cell skin cancers. Those are the most common, and we're not going to do the melanoma. There's 300,000 cases, and it would be complicated for the FDA. So 1 out of every 3 new skin cancers in this country is skin cancer, and new cancer is a skin cancer. And that's about 3.3 million people, and we aren't saying we're going to treat 3.3 million people because some of those are simply just surgically remove them. We're interested in the most advanced cases that people really need help. And so if we figure 10% of the cases, just with these crude estimates, we're talking about a $1.5 billion annual revenue. That's pretty impressive, considering that's only one indication for use, and there's 17 others that we are interested in. So this is a really important product. Our revenue stream can, of course, not occur until after we get to the FDA, but we are going to tap into it earlier via the licensing rights to use this technology internationally. And we already are in the middle of those conversations. And I said before, we'll hopefully get some revenue early next year. The FDA path forward, this is always a question. We have engaged John Smith from Hogan Lovellis. Now, Hogan Lovellis, in our opinion, is the best in the country for this kind of work. It's a huge organization. John Smith has 23 attorneys just on this area of device for the FDA, and we're a device. And John is a partner, but he's personally helping us. I mean, I talk to John 3 times a week and his team. And if you think you can get to the FDA by reading the regulations without an expert at your side, you're making a bad mistake. So John is really helping us in a lot of ways. We're using the veterinarian testing to optimize our therapy techniques. Now, this is going much better than we thought. The 2 cats that we tested at Washington State University, the techniques we developed are identical to the ones we're going to be using for treating skin cancers. So that was a very pleasant surprise, and we're happy about that. And we're actually talking to the FDA about that in our recent application. We just recently decided to conduct international testing in parallel to help with the timeline. I'm getting this done early. So that's brand new thought. We will probably morph our international licensing to include testing. So we're right in the middle of the embryonic piece of those kind of discussions. The steps for FDA approval, it's very simple. There's 4 steps. There's pre-submission meeting or meetings with the FDA. These occur on a regular basis. Our first one is just been scheduled for August 29th. First one in my regime. We've had other meetings. And so we put in a request for a meeting, and they came back. Now, to give you a feeling for how difficult it is to deal with the FDA, they demand professionalism, and they're a highly respected organization. So this simple request for a meeting was 233 pages long. We worked on it for 3.5, 4 months, and it had to do a complete literature survey. We had to review and answer the last set of 42 questions. We had to look at our last data, reported data, projecting our new testing. It was a big document and a lot of work. So after this meeting, which is very important for us, they're going to give us the clarification we need, and we will then complete the last of our benchtop and preclinical animal studies. And it makes sense to get guidance from the FDA before you do those last tests. And so we're going to complete those tests. After you complete the test, you take those data and you go back to the FDA and say, I want to do human trials. And the next step, you do your human trials and you submit those data in a pre-market submission for final FDA approval. So that's the process. Our growth strategy is pretty simple. We're going to do quantum steps. After every time we go to an indication for use, we're going to pick another one. The Medical Advisory Board is having an interesting debates. Everybody they're advocating for their cancer. Right now, lymph nodes is second place, and a lot of advocacy for liver and pancreatic cancer. But that's still an ongoing debate. And if we had more money, we can do more than one in series, but this is very much fun limited. Our production really is completed. We have optimized our production. We're really happy about it. We now have a proprietary process to cost-effectively produce RadioGel in very small particles. And we have developed this process. This year alone, we did 30 development runs. And this is a very important intellectual property. We can cost-effectively make tiny particles reproducibly, and the technology is better than what we licensed, better than anything that's published. So this was a real achievement this year. Currently, we're in the process. We have the standard operating procedure, and we're doing the final steps of producing our QA plan and what's called GMP for the FDA. The intellectual property protection, as CEO, it's my job to manage into the future. If you're going to have a risk out there, you got to mitigate those risks. There's other examples of companies that have gone a long way and then somebody comes in and takes it. That's not going to happen to us. We retained an intellectual property attorney. The Battelle sublicense gives AMIC the rights to 8 patents. We could write, actually right now, future patents, but based on what we've done already. We've trademark protected in 17 countries. But my way of thinking, the most important protection is the proprietary intellectual property. I already talked about our production procedures. We're doing other developments, and this is just a couple of them. Resorption time, I'm going to describe that. I talked about gelation temperature, but then it sits around for about 3 months until the body digests it. For some future applications, for example, if a doctor takes out a breast cancer tumor, you coat the cavity of the tumor to make sure to kill any cells that are remaining, and you'd kind of like that hydrogel after it decays after 20 days to go away and not wait 3 months. We now know how to independently control the gelation temperature in the time it goes away. So that's very important for future proprietary applications. Imaging, we have just modified our formula so we can CT image the product. So doctor, after they put it into the patient, they want to go back and see that they hit it right. And so that is a new development. Again, proprietary data. And of course, all our test data is proprietary. Describe the management team. This is me. It must be a younger me. I guess maybe this job is driving me, making me older. But this is Bruce Joliffe, our CFO. I talk to him every day. He's very important to our company. Dr. David Swanberg, I think, that gets the most valuable player award. He's my right-hand person. He was a co-founder of IsoRay, and he understands this business cradle to grave and is very important worker for us. Dr. Donald Ludwig is highly technical, and he has been in this business for so many years. It's incredible the people he knows. You go to a conference, and he's like the celebrity. It's embarrassing, but he is the one. He's very respected internationally, and he is heading our thrust for international licensing. Dr. Nigel Stevenson is another highly successful brachytherapy company. He is our chief science officer, and I call Nigel up about every 2 weeks and say, Nigel, what do you think about this? I need his senior experience and guidance, and I use it that way. We have medical and scientific advisory boards. This is Dr. Pressman, the leader of the medical advisory board, and Dr. Denidas and Sandler are on the board. This is Dr. Ellen Walter, chairman of the scientific advisory board, and Dr. Ellis Villanovas, chairman of the medical advisory board. And Dr. Daryl Fisher is internationally recognized medical physicist. So we are a small company, but we have some powerful friends. They're all nice people, I tell you. Good to work with. Our key stock stats, we're ADMD. Our current price is 10 cents. Market cap is 5 million, and outstanding shares is 50. Inside ownership is 3%. That's like chairman of the board type people. The float is actually the difference between these two numbers. These are the ones that are not controlled by insider trading. The 52-week range of the stock is 5 cents to $1. I personally believe we're really undervalued, but that's my opinion. And we have a plan. We're executing a plan. We're making great progress. Our stock actually should be higher than 10 cents. So that's again my opinion. The highlights in summary on slide 19 is we expect revenue from IsoPets by January or earlier. International licensing revenue is expected in early 2018. We have strong leadership in the medical advisory board and in our other boards. We plan to uplist to a senior exchange. We're trying to figure out if it's Nasdaq or New York, but that'll be in the next 2 months. We are partnering with some of the best people in the country. We have our production process optimized. We have, since we're a device, we have the advantage of a device path through the FDA with the market potential of a drug, and we have a great deal of intellectual property protection. And so just to summarize and conclude, I like to think of RadioGel as a new tool in a medical community toolbox. I didn't make that term up. When I was in a conference in Florida in Yttrium 90, when I was describing this to some of the doctors there, they got pretty excited. They said, my gosh, this is a new tool in the toolbox. These are their words. They said there hasn't been a new tool for 20 years. The last one was cryogenics. So they're very anxious to get their hands on that. I had the same reaction from Dr. Susan Baru at Colorado State. Said, I need this new tool to operate. So with that, thank you for your time, and we will now go to the question and answer period. Thank you.
Okay, we're now opening the line for our Q&A session, and with us we have Dr. Mike Korenko, President and CEO of Advanced Medical Isotope. Again, the ticker symbol is ADMD, and we'll just jump right into the questions because we have quite a few that have come in. So, Dr. Korenko, our first question, actually we've had several investors have asked questions about the reverse split, and could you just maybe talk a little bit more about the plans around the reverse split?
Yes, thank you. The reverse split is very important for us. To obtain our S1 investment, it's necessary to uplift to a larger exchange. We intend to apply for a listing for a common stock on either the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. Our primary objective in proposing the reverse split is to attempt to raise the per share trading price of our common stock to satisfy listing requirements. The NASDAQ, you'd have to have, well, at New York Stock Exchange is $2 a share and $3 a share for NASDAQ. So if between now and then, if the price of the stock increases, say by the end of September, then the size of the split will be reduced. A real positive in that is the number of authorized shares. If you went to the extreme of a 1 to 50 split, reduces the number of authorized shares from the currently 2 billion to 40 million. So that is a positive. No one's really hurt by the split since the price of the shares is increased in proportion to the number of shares. But the issue is really not the number of shares, it's the trend in the price of the stock. If the stock goes up, this is reverse split makes no difference. And we're on track to implementing our plan and making substantial progress. And if you agree with me that the market is smart, then progress will eventually be reflected in the price of the stock.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Korenko. Our next question, can you talk a little bit about the status of implementing good manufacturing processes and quality assurance, quality control plans, and how that relates to the FDA approval process?
Yes, we actually am working with Isotherapeutics. In fact, we talked to them this morning on a conference call. We wanted to ensure that they have good manufacturing process material that we can plug into. They do. They have quite a bit. For both of our processes, you start off with the standard operating procedures, which has just been completed, and then you have an umbrella QA plan and an umbrella quality control plan, and then the process itself has a number of written procedures. Dave Swanberg and I actually met this weekend and outlined exactly what our plan would be, and that's what the conference call with Isotherapeutics was this morning. It just means that you are manufacturing with a sense of discipline to what is considered the good practices by the Food and Drug Administration. So we are working that in parallel. We should have the bulk of that completed in 2 months' time, exactly the timing for the end of our last of our in vitro and in vivo testing. You have to do your testing to these standards, and that pedigree is in. We're working it right now, and about 2 months away for completion, or sooner. We're not quite sure, but I'm trying to be conservative. Thank you.
Our next question, can you talk a little bit about your plans to execute on your sales and marketing strategy for the veterinary clinic specifically?
Yes, well, as I showed in the presentation, it's a 3-stage process. You have to first get approval from the University Veterinarian hospitals. We decided to work 4 of these in parallel so we could shorten the timeline. And so we have between 6 and 8 cancers at these 4 clinics. At first we thought it was just cats and dogs, but now we realize that the horses have some real issues. So that review process is in progress. It takes a long time. You have a radiation safety review committee, you have an animal rights committee, and you have independent reviews. It's almost like the FDA, but not quite as cumbersome. But by September, we should be testing in all these hospitals. The therapies will be demonstrated and then we will record very carefully the procedures. And then our initial process thinking was to go to the private clinics. But since we've made such good progress with the feline sarcoma, and since the therapies are so similar, we're learning from talking to our veterinarian experts that we think that there's an opportunity to actually start some private clinic testing while we're doing the rest of the veterinarian hospital. So I'm going this month, August 10th and 11th, to meet with private clinics for the first time to see if there's a way to accelerate the timeline. And that should generate near-term revenues, not massive like you expect from the medical sector, but I used to work for Westinghouse, and they taught us you have to figure out how to make profit every step of the way, and that's kind of what we're after. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Korenko. And our next question, you just mentioned the medical side. This investor was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the path to commercialization on the medical side. Will you be planning to bring RadioGel to market yourself, or will you partner with somebody as you get through the latter stages of the FDA approval process?
Our current base plan is to market ourselves. There are some informal indications that when the larger companies take you seriously, then they will want to engage in some kind of partnership. But our base plan is to manufacture this and to distribute it ourselves at this moment in history. Internationally, that's a little different story. We're picking partners that will manufacture and distribute into different countries. And to give you a sense for that, the total market is 50% is in the United States, 10% in Europe, 10% in pretty much the rest of the world has the rest of the share. And so we are going to use international testing for our marketing agents. They would both manufacture and distribute. But in the United States, our intent at this point in time is to manufacture it ourselves and market ourselves.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Korenko. And you were just talking a little bit about the international markets, and that relates, I guess, to our next question a little bit here. This investor was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the progress you're making on international licensing that you've been working on.
Well, I'd say the progress is slow. It's a slow process. I actually made our first Skype call in January to Russia, and we have been communicating with them. We actually met with two very influential leaders in June in a key conference, but this is in the Russia and associated countries, and Turkey, who actually has very successful businesses that have morphed all the way to Saudi Arabia. So we're looking at those two markets to test our thinking. We have engaged an intellectual property attorney, have generated a detailed license and a memorandum of understanding, and we are in discussions on that as we speak. But I mentioned in the presentation that our thinking has actually been expanded. We were looking for upfront royalty fee and then a royalty going down, but now I'm very open to a small upfront fee and to exchange some of the royalties for them to engage in human trials for skin cancer. We have learned from our John Smith, our advisor, that this could actually accelerate the timeline for FDA approval. So we have just, in fact, last week have sent out some emails letting our key contacts know that perhaps there's another way to license and test with the same agreement. So it's still embryonic, but we are still targeting to bring in some kind of royalties by March of next year.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Korenko. And our next question, could you talk a little bit about the actual timeline for the FDA process, when you may be able to begin human trials and what that overall timeline looks like?
Well, if you're old enough, you know what the $64,000 question means. But the rule of thumb, since we're a device, is that a drug takes 8 to 12 years and a device takes 3 to 5 years. And we do not know how much credit we get for time spent. So we know that there is already significant progress which would subtract from that time. the meeting that we're having with the FDA on August 29th is extremely important to really sharpen the pencil on trying to make an accurate projection of the time that's required. As I mentioned, testing internationally should help. Whether we get a de novo or a PMA is something we're going to get feedback on this meeting. And the largest uncertainty really is the amount of human testing that's required. We really believe, since we're a device, it should be minimal, but you can't put the words in the FDA's mouth. You have to see what they say, and it depends on the quality of the data before that. And you also have, another uncertainty is the time it takes for the FDA to respond to our request. I've been told by our consultant that it can take 8 to 12 months for a response to the final pre-market application. So with these uncertainties, we are saying that it's 2 plus, maybe up to 3 years is where we're targeting for. But this is why you need the safe harbor statements. You just have to meet with the FDA on the 29th, see what they have to say, and then sharpen your pencil and make those projections as we go. All we know at this point in time.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Korenko. And I guess in summary, you covered a lot of great information in the presentation, as well as here in the Q&A. But what's the key takeaway for investors, whether they have been with ADMD for a long time or whether they're just learning about the story now? What's the key takeaway?
Well, I think the value proposition is that we have a unique dynamite product that's going to help a lot of people. We have a small but crackerjack team. We have a plan to generate revenue in the short term with international testing and veterinarian side, and we have the potential of a huge market. This is a market that you'd expect out of a major drug, and yet we're a device. So we have kind of the best of both worlds. We have the potential market of a drug and the potential shorter path of a device. And finally, the takeaway is the reason that I'm involved and my team's involved is we're going to help a lot of people and a lot of pets. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And definitely a great opportunity for investors wanting to learn more about advanced medical isotope. You can come to our website here at RedChip.com. We have plenty of additional information here. Speak to one of our specialists as well should you have some additional questions. And you can even sign up for email news alerts. So as some of these milestones are reached and the company makes announcements, you'll be one of the first to see those announcements. Again, this was Advanced Medical Isotope Corp. We were talking to President and CEO, Dr. Mike Korenko. And the ticker symbol again is ADMD. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today.